nucleic acid detection, and personal protection of SARS coronavirus 2. Based on the current information on the biological characteristics, epidemiological characteristics, pathogenicity, and clinical manifestations of the SARS coronavirus 2, the pathogen is temporarily classified into the highly pathogenic microorganisms in China. Before inactivation of uncultured SARS coronavirus 2 infectious substances by reliable methods, activities such as viral antigen testing, serological testing, nucleic acid testing, biochemical analysis, and inactivation of clinical specimens should be performed in Biosafety Laboratory Level 2, while using personal protection equipment subject to Biosafety Laboratory Level 3 laboratory protection requirements. Inactivation of SARS coronavirus 2 pneumonia case specimens must be performed in Biosafety Laboratory Level 2 and higher Biosafety Laboratory. After entering the laboratory anteroom, place a specimen transfer box and perform laboratory access registration. Put on the experimental shoe cover. Remove the disposable mask and put it in a garbage bag. Put on a disposable surgical cap and tuck all your hair into the cap. Check for damage by inflating. Remember to check before wearing gloves. Wearing long-sleeve disposable medical rubber gloves as inner gloves, which must cover the sleeves of gown. Wear a mask that meets N95 standard and above, and check airtightness. Wear goggles and adjust the length of the elastic band to a suitable position. Next, wear whole-body protective clothing. Firstly, check the integrity and then wear the clothing. Put on a one-piece hat and pull the zipper to your head. Remove the protective film of tape from the placket and stick the tape carefully. Wear outer gloves after checking its integrity. The rear edge of the gloves must cover the cuffs of protective clothing. Wear a long-sleeve waterproof boot cover. The boot cover should be non-slip. After finishing wearing, researchers should check each other to avoid anything missing, and perform actions such as raising hands, squatting, and bending down to check whether the protective clothing fits or not. After wearing PPE, open the outer packaging of the specimen transfer box. The inner packaging needs to be decontaminated with sodium hydrochloride disinfectant. And then disinfection of gloves. After disinfection, the secondary packaging is taken into the experimental core workspace for experiments. When working in the core laboratory workspace, two researchers should cooperate with each other. A researcher opens a biological safety cabinet and keeps it running at least 5 minutes. Two researchers cooperate to place experimental materials in the biological safety cabinet in turn, and then start experiment. One researcher puts on the experiment pad, and then another one puts a secondary package containing the specimen in the biological safety cabinet. One researcher unpacks a secondary package containing the specimen in the biological safety cabinet. When opening the secondary package, it needs to be disinfected with a chlorine-containing disinfectant. The inner package can be removed after completion of disinfection. The lid and interior of the secondary package need to be disinfected in time. After thorough disinfection of the surface of the specimen tube, remove the tube with tweezers and then wipe it with paper towel with disinfectant. Next, check specimen information carefully. Place the specimen tube on the specimen rack, taking care not to invert it. The inner package and other items need to be disinfected in time. After the operation, the researcher who contacts the specimen needs to disinfect the outer gloves in the biological safety cabinet and then remove the outer gloves. After removing the outer gloves, disinfect the inner gloves according to washing method. Wear new outer gloves. Next, inactivation of specimen is performed. The researcher should take the specimen tube carefully. Take an appropriate amount of sample to the lysate and mix well. After mixing completely, let it stand for 15 minutes. After completed inactivation, both researchers need to disinfect the outer gloves and remove the outer gloves. After disinfecting the inner gloves, replace the outer gloves with new ones. After the operation, the surface of the specimen tube needs to be disinfected. After disinfection, put the specimen tubes, which were already inactivated and needs to be preserved, into the cryopreservation box, respectively. Next, take out the biosafety cabinet after disinfecting the surface of the cryopreservation box with disinfectant thoroughly. At the end of the experiment, two experimenters also need to cooperate with each other. Firstly, take the freezing container out of the biosafety cabinet. Spray the shelves and boxes inside the biosafety cabinet with disinfectant, and then take out from the biosafety cabinet. The package used for storing the specimen tube should be discarded in the garbage bags, and the sheets for experiments should be disinfected before discarding them. Disinfect the outer gloves. Replace with new gloves according to the procedure. Disinfect the surface of the trash can and seal the garbage bag. Disinfect the sealed garbage bag and then put it in the yellow garbage bag. After the disinfection with disinfectant, the biosafety cabinet should be wiped with medical alcohol. Close the biosafety cabinet. After the operation, in the biosafety cabinet, 2 experimenters disinfect the outer gloves with disinfectant, then remove the outer gloves. After disinfecting the inner gloves, replace them with new ones. Disinfect the inside and outside of the yellow garbage bag. Then tie the garbage bag. Disinfect the inner surface of trash and replace the new garbage bag. Next, the 2 researchers spray the entire body with a chlorine-containing disinfectant, including the lower back, the inner and outer legs, and the bottom of the shoes. Pay special attention to places that are easily contaminated, such as the forearm. During disinfection, they should check each other for visible contamination, cuts or tears in personal protective equipment. If any, it should be mainly disinfected, and the emergency response should be initiated. After complete disinfection, the next action can be taken. At last, a worker takes the freezing containers with specimens and the inactivated specimens. The other worker takes the garbage bags and leaves the experimental area. In laboratory anteroom, 2 workers should cooperate with each other. One puts the garbage bags in a sterilizer. The other one puts freezing containers in the transfer boxes. The specimen tubes containing the remaining specimens are transferred to the storeroom, and the specimen tubes containing the inactivated specimens are transferred to a specialized laboratory for nucleic acid extraction. Next, the personal protective equipment should be taken off. Disinfect the outer gloves and remove them. Then the inner gloves also should be disinfected. Make sure the new outer gloves covering the cuff of protective clothing. Carefully peel the tape off the placket and pull the zip all the way. In case of the contamination of the placket, the outer gloves should be disinfected and taken off. Then the protective clothing can be taken off after the disinfection for inner gloves. Roll the protective suit from inside to outside after taking off the suit. Make sure your hands are away from the outer layer of the suit, and at last, take off the protective suit and foot covers. Fold and roll them into a package and discard them in a trash bag. Disinfect the surface of the inner gloves. Remove the goggles from the back of the head and discard it in the garbage bag. Remove mask from the back of the head and discard it in the garbage bag. Remove the inner cap and discard it in the garbage bag. Take off the inner foot covers and discard them in the garbage bag. A worker takes off the gloves. The other one sprays the disinfectant to the garbage bags and seals the mouth of the bag. At last, put these garbage bags into the high-pressure steam sterilizer for autoclaving. Replace the new trash bag. After disinfecting the surface of the inner gloves, remove the inner gloves and put them in a garbage bag. Wear the disposable medical mask. Leaving the laboratory. Real-time quantitative PCR technology is one of the main methods for genetic diagnosis of SARS coronavirus 2. The PCR testing laboratory is divided into 3 areas: reagent preparation area, samples processing area, and amplification analysis area. Each work area is equipped with special equipment, instruments, auxiliary facilities, consumables, cleaning supplies, office supplies, special work clothes, etc. Do not mix between the work areas. The sequence of experimental operations should strictly follow the single flow direction system from reagent preparation area, samples processing area, amplification analysis area, and must not enter the previous work area in the reverse direction. The work area must be cleaned immediately after work. The laboratory bench in the work area can be wiped with sodium hydrochloride, hydrochloric acid, etc. to remove nucleic acid contamination, and nucleus reagent spray can also be used to remove nucleic acid pollution. Turn on the UV lamp at 254 millimeters to disinfect the laboratory for 60 minutes. Since the distance and energy of UV irradiation are critical to the effect of decontamination, a removable UV lamp can be used. The workers enter register in the laboratory anteroom and wear the laboratory shoe covers. Wear disposable medical masks. Wear a disposable surgical cap and push all your hair into the cap. Wear a disposable gown. Wear disposable medical gloves. Note that the above behavior should be taken before entering each section of the PCR laboratory. Enter the reagent preparation room. Take out the kit. Take one manufacturer's kit as an example. 12 microliters of QRT PCR reaction solution. 4 microliters of QRT PCR enzyme mixture. 4 microliters of primer probes. 5 microliters of sample nucleic acid. And 25 microliters of total reaction system per reaction well. According to the number of samples, The volume of the test system was prepared besides one positive control and 3 negative controls. Aliquot, 20 microliters of reaction system per well. After packing, the reaction tube should be capped. After experiment, clean the laboratory and use sodium hydrochloride and nucleus reagents to remove nucleic acid contamination. And deal with the laboratory waste in time. Take off disposable gowns and gloves. And remove hats and masks. Take the reaction tube of the PCR reaction system out of the laboratory. Note that the waste must be autoclaved and the laboratory must be disinfected with UV lamp. The other 2 rooms are decontaminated similarly. Take the PCR reaction tube to the laboratory anteroom. Prepare the freezing container for inactivated specimens to nucleic acid extraction. Wear protective equipment as required. Put the freezing container and PCR reaction tube into the room of the nucleic acid extraction. The nucleic acid was extracted manually. First, put the inactivated specimen tube into the centrifuge in order to remove drops from the inside of the lid to prevent contamination. After centrifugal, open the lid carefully. Add 560 microliters ethanol to the specimen tube. And mix by vortexing for 15 seconds. To ensure the efficiency of the combination, it is essential that the sample is mixed thoroughly with ethanol and the centrifuge for 5 seconds. Carefully apply 630 microliters of the solution obtained in the previous step into the spin column, being careful not to touch the edge of the column. Close the cap and centrifuge for 1 minute at 8,000 RPM. Transfer the spin column to a new 2 mm collection tube, the tube with the waste solution in a disposable sealed bag. Carefully open the lid. Add the remaining solution to the spin column and repeat the previous step. Note, if the sample volume was greater than 140 microliters, repeat the step until all solution has been loaded onto the column. Carefully open the lid and add 500 microliters of wash solution AW1. Close the cap and centrifuge for 1 minute at 8,000 RPM. Transfer the spin column to a clean 2 milliliter collection tube. Carefully open the lid and add 500 microliters of wash solution AW2. Close the cap and centrifuge at full speed for 3 minutes. Place the spin column in a clean 2 milliliter collection tube. Centrifuge at full speed for 1 minute to remove residual AW2. Put the spin column in the clean 1.5 milliliter centrifuge tube. Carefully open the cap and add 60 microliters eluate AVE, equilibrated to room temperature, to the spin column membrane. The eluate AVE should cover the spin column membrane. Cover the spin column with the cap of the centrifuge tube. Cut off the original spin column cover with the sterile scissors and incubate at room temperature for 1 minute. Put the spin column into centrifuge. Centrifuge at 8,000 RPM for 1 minute to collect nucleic acids and discard the spin column. The extracted nucleic acids is in the EP tube. Remove the sealing cap of PCR reaction tube. Add 5 microliters nucleic acid to each tube. And add 5 microliters of negative and positive controls. After adding the sample, close the cap. The remaining nucleic acids are stored in a refrigerator at 4 degrees Celsius until use. After the experiment, cleaning laboratory and handling personal protective equipment. Take the sealed PCR reaction tube out of the nucleic acid extraction room. Wear personal protective equipment as required. Put the PCR reaction tube into the PCR testing room. Put the PCR reaction tube in the detection instrument. Set the application parameters according to the kit instructions. After the reaction is completed, it is strictly forbidden to open the PCR reaction tube. It should be immediately sealed in a sealed bag and placed in a garbage bag. After the experiment, the laboratory cleaning and personal protective equipment should be handled in accordance with the procedures. After the application, make a comprehensive analysis of the results according to the kit instructions and results of negative and positive controls. Key tips. Donning and doffing of personal protection equipment are emphasized during inactivation of SARS coronavirus 2 infected patient specimens. The nucleic acid detection of SARS coronavirus 2 focuses on 1. The accuracy of the test results. 2. Protection of the sample nucleic acid from contamination.